So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the ADHD Reframe Project podcast with me, host Emma. And today I'm joined by Georgina. So, Georgina, would you like to just do a little intro to yourself, please?
Of course, I'm Georgina. I am living with MS and ADHD, and I'm the founder of Purple, the UK's first money saving platform for people with disabilities.
Blimey, multiple sclerosis and ADHD. Do you have an ADHD household, or did you?
We do, but it all kind of happened during COVID where my stepson said, I think I've got ADHD. And we were that typical family that went, no, you don't. We haven't seen any kind of traits of that. And a long story short, he got diagnosed, then his twin brother got diagnosed. Then the psychiatrist said to my husband, you know that you've got it as well. And then his other son got diagnosed, my oldest stepson. And then my son got diagnosed, even though we're a blended family. And then I read my son's reports and I was like, oh my God, that was me at his age. And then I got diagnosed. But none of them were your traditional, typical hyperactive children. He all did very well through school. It was more that internal inattentive ADHD, worrying about things on the inside, OCD type behaviors, overthinking things. And therefore, I think that's more likely to impact later on in life than maybe in the younger years.
I think as well, with the inattentive side of what you're just explaining, I think as well it is less kind of recognised because everything is internalised, and I thought it was just women that were primarily inattentive, but actually it's not. It's everyone, and I've completely and utterly forgot the point I was going to make because my brain
Right,
has
that's
just
ADHD.
decided to. Yeah, my brain has just decided to buffer. So so your diagnosis, how did you find that?
It was fine because I think by that point I'd come to realise it anyway. And I think I'm probably ADHD, I can't say that word. As my psychiatrist has said to me, you've definitely got autistic traits. I just haven't bothered with the diagnosis yet because I did the ADHD one because I'd read that for some people with MS, it actually the medications helps. And that's exactly what I found. The medication
Wow.
helped. And I noticed the difference when it wears off, and even in that my walking becomes, I can't walk independently. I can't walk very far. I use a wheelchair when I'm out and about, but in the house, I tend to like furniture surf around the house. And I can tell in the evening when it's worn off that it's harder to move around the house than when it's in the daytime when it's kind of kicked in and it's at its peak. So it's definitely helped my MS and improved some of my symptoms, I would say, around my bladder, because I think my brain is no longer thinking about everything constantly. And therefore, it's not disrupting. I don't know. It's hard to explain, isn't it? Sometimes I struggle with an exercise, and me and my PT friend, we'll play a game or something like a word game, and then I can do the exercise. Because quite often my brain would take over, and it will go, "Oh, we can't do that," or it will overthink it, so it makes it more difficult. So the meds have definitely helped, I would say.
Wow.
It's a lot. I,
Well,
I, I could talk about it for a long time because I think that if I look back at my whole life, I remember being 3 years old and I would lie in bed if my parents had gone out for the evening, and I would catastrophize. Even at 3 years old, I remember doing it, thinking, what if they don't come back? What if they're in an accident? And I've always had a very overactive imagination. Like I see pictures and things, like if a towel's folded up or the carpet's kind of ruffled, I can see faces and things. And the psychiatrist said to me, that's because your brain is always constantly thinking so much. And I think that damages your body, your nervous system, when you're constantly anxious and worrying about things and overthinking things time and time again. And particularly for women with ADHD, I do think that that damages the nervous system. And they've already linked fibromyalgia and now
yeah,
endometriosis to ADHD, undiagnosed
yeah.
ADHD. I wonder where there's a connection with MS and all the other autoimmune diseases, because they've never been able to cure any of these autoimmunes, and they haven't really understood why they happen, what's going on, and it just makes so much sense to me, that kind of flight or fight. If it's
Yeah.
an animal in the wild, they'll have that adrenaline and then they'll forget about it and move on. But we don't do that if we have an overactive imagination. We think about it constantly and we keep putting our body through it time and time again, even though it's not actually happening, but the memory of it happening is still just as bad on your body. And so I do honestly believe that that has impacted my health. And why is it so many women have autoimmune diseases? Why is it so many women have been not diagnosed or misdiagnosed with depression or other um, mental health disabilities? But actually, underneath it all, it's the ADHD that has potentially been the trigger for every one of us. And I speak to so many women through Purple, so many. I had a conversation this morning with someone, and they all have ADHD, or they think they have ADHD, or they have children with ADHD. It's too many for it to be a coincidence. I honestly believe that. It's
No, yeah, I have been diagnosed with fibro and I have endometriosis, and I also have polycystic ovaries. Um, and yeah, I have read that there are big links between having gynecological operations and fibro being triggered, or getting worse. And I also have looked at the link between fibromyalgia and undiagnosed ADHD, um, and also the link between, because I've spoken to a lot of ladies that unfortunately have also been diagnosed with complex PTSD, particularly around medical issues, because you just kind of, you just basically been fobbed off all the time, and you just, and so yeah, that's a fascinating kind of topic for me to kind of just pick apart. And I think that unfortunately it is not widely known about or even recognized by so many kind of medical professionals.
Well, there's no money to be made for them, is there? Let's face it. At the end of the day, the pharmaceutical companies aren't going to make money from it being something as simplistic as ADHD. But as a society, the money we would save, that the NHS would save if they weren't having to treat autoimmune diseases and long-term health conditions, if it was just as simple as diagnosing girls, particularly at a younger age, it could be so beneficial for us all. But I'm not sure we're that good at being that reactive rather than proactive. But I do think there's a connection. And then I think the last year, as I'm 50 this year, and over the last year, my MS has felt like it was getting worse. Actually, what I'm come to realize is it's
Perimenopause.
well, actually, now I've discovered I've probably been in perimenopause since the time my walking went downhill when I'd hit 40. In
Yeah,
which
me
case,
too.
why did they not test my hormones when I was hit
Yep.
40? Because now I'm still trying to get my dose, but I'm over the prescription level for estrogen because it was so low. And I've just started testosterone because that was low as well. And how many women, it always seems to be women in their 40s, autoimmune disease gets worse at that age. And how much of that getting worse is then linked to the hormones. And we're not
Yep.
looking at that either. We're
Yep.
not saying to women at 40, let's test your hormones before we do anything else. You may well have an autoimmune disease, but maybe it's getting worse because your hormones are dropping, because a lower testosterone causes weakness in your muscles, it causes aches and pains, causes tiredness.
Yep. And also as well with the ADHD symptoms, I'm the same as you. The perimenopause, I'm almost positive that it started when I turned 40. I was 50 last year. But I'm sure the perimenopause, because I had to have one of my ovaries removed because it was just constant kind of pain and cysts on it, that the gynecologist just said to me, let's just take it out. But he didn't pre-warn me that having one ovary would trigger the perimenopause, and I obviously didn't know a lot about it back then either. Completely and utterly kind of unaware of any kind of perimenopause kind of hitting around the age of 40. and I was diagnosed with ADHD in 2019, so I was 43. The year after, diagnosed with fibro, a couple of years after, diagnosed with complex PTSD, depression, all of the fun things, and I've completely and utterly forgot hormones. Sorry, yeah, I'm just going to try and make a point. So hormones, obviously, when it comes to ADHD, every time your estrogen drops, the ADHD symptoms spike. And for us women, estrogen is primarily responsible for the dopamine in our brains. The dopamine, every time the estrogen drops, the dopamine in a non-existent kind of a dopamine, oh my goodness, a
No
brain that's
way.
lacking, yeah.
And I think something my husband said to me a week. He said, "Women have been really let down by the NHS. Why is no one discussing this? Why is no one looking at it other than medication? Why are they not looking at the whole link and saying, actually, we don't have to have women suffering and struggling. Perhaps there is a way where they don't have to go through all of that." No, I'm not medical, of absolutely. I haven't, I'm not, there's a psychology degree, but you talk to enough women and you start to see a pattern. And why is no one else seeing it?
Yeah. I had issues with medication, ADHD medication, after COVID. The stock, basically, because I take Concerta XL, and the stock, it was just out of stock everywhere. And they tried me on another couple of different medications, which basically just made me feel like I was dazed and confused, and there was just nothing, just nothing and nothing. And I just couldn't manage to do anything. But once I got back on the Concerta, I went to see one of the doctors at my surgery about perimenopause and HRT, and I said to the lady doctor, it would be amazing if we could have like a specialist psychiatrist that focuses on women's well-being as well as diagnosing ADHD or, treating ADHD. And you had like just people like, even if it was a man, if he specializes in women's health and, hormonal fluctuations. And she said, the doctor looked me in the face and she said, good luck with that, because nothing like that exists.
No, and as I said, it comes back to money at the end of the day. And look, the government is like, I can't even get my meds through the NHS, which is out ridiculous. I don't use medication. The only medication I have are my ADHD meds, Alvance, and HRT. And I'm having to pay privately for my ADHD meds because even though my husband and my son and my stepson got theirs through through shared care through because we had to go privately for the diagnosis through the GP. They then dragged mine out for nearly a year and then wouldn't give it to me, said they're not doing it anymore. And so I had to be referred to Right to Choose, and now there's put a stop on that in the Hampshire where I live, saying that it's going to be a 4-year wait list now. And it's like, hang on, these meds, I don't take anything else from the NHS. I work really hard to look after myself and stay well away from the NHS. But I've paid my national insurance, I've paid tax all my working life, and yet the one medication that actually helps me, the ADHD meds, I can't get. But if I wanted an MS drug that was £100,000, I could get that. It's like bonkers to me.
That's insane.
It is insane.
That makes no sense
I know,
at all.
I know. And me and my husband are ambassadors for ADHD UK, and I know they're trying to fight this whole right to choose thing that's going on. And I don't know enough about it to talk about it, but it is crazy because it's so life changing, and people are making decisions that have no idea. And there's more women commit suicide
Yeah,
who have ADHD. There's more people in
yeah,
prison who have ADHD. There's more antisocial behavior by people who have ADHD. So
yeah,
why don't we look at the beginning and stop that from happening by helping people and diagnosing? And it doesn't necessarily have to be medication, but give them resources and skill things to help them along the way when they're younger. We could change the future.
yeah. And I think it's sad that, through even through the NHS, you're diagnosed, you're medicated, and then that's it. That's all they've got to offer. And I know it comes down to money and budgets, but it's not good enough if you ask me. It's
Yeah.
not good enough, and it needs to change. And I do, yeah, even after you're diagnosed, like it's almost like you go to battle with any medical professional when it comes to ADHD, well, and anything, but it's just everything is a fight or everything is a battle, like, and they keep changing the processes so often that none of it kind of makes sense. So when I was diagnosed, I had a shared care plan with my doctors. Then I changed GP surgery, and they kept the shared care plan in place, but COVID hit, and then obviously there was anything kind of medical was just for that, which I completely understand. But if you're medicated, you're meant to have a annual review with a specialist psychiatrist. Well, that didn't happen for me. So because I changed doctor's surgeries, it wasn't picked up for quite a few years that I'd been discharged from the service or the psychiatrist that diagnosed the ADHD. And it took a few years, but my doctor's surgery, after I tried like different branded medication because they couldn't get the Concerta, my doctors then just decided that they were just going to stop prescribing me the ADHD meds, like literally no titration down off of them, no, like wouldn't even give me anything else, for the simple fact that I hadn't had a review with the annual review with the psychiatrist. So they did a referral back to the clinic that diagnosed me, and it was a 2-year waiting list just for a review. And obviously, because my doctors were refusing to prescribe the medication until I had the review, yeah, I was expected to wait 2 years, and it just was a nightmare. And I actually contacted PALS, because it's not, you can't, it's not a dependency, but when you've become, your biological processes in your brain have become used to having that medication. So then without it, trust me, it was an absolute nightmare sometimes. And I'm studying psychology as well, at the moment, but trying to study effectively without the ADHD medication was a nightmare as well. And thankfully, like, I did the PALS thing, and put the complaint in, and then I spoke to a gentleman on the phone, and he said, "I'm sorry, but there's probably not anything that we can do, but send an email, and I will maybe just email the clinic." And I spoke to the man, I cried, and I thought, right, the next morning I thought, right, I am going to send the email, because if injustice for us ADHD people is huge, isn't it? So anyway, this is a complete tangent, and I'm sorry. I'm meant to be interviewing you, but you've so anyway, I sent the email to the PALS team, and it was a different person that picked it up. And within 2 hours, I had a ADHD specialist nurse ring me from the clinic, and literally, she did something called the bridging prescription. So for people like me who had been obviously discharged and had not had a review, if you're already medicated, then you have to have monthly phone calls, and they will arrange for the medication to continue, but it's prescribed by the clinic, not the doctor. So anyway, I had the review. It was like 20-minute appointment with the psychiatrist. It was online. He was just like, yeah, no problem. He increased the dosage, and that was it. And then I've had a second review after that, and now, but it was like 22 years to
So,
wait for a 20-minute conversation is insane. I didn't wait 2 years, but
still, it would have been. And for me, they won't even accept my psychiatrist's diagnosis, even though he's a perfectly legitimate qualified, ex-military psychiatrist. So good credentials, fine with my GP surgery for my husband and my son and
It's
my
insane.
stepsons, but right to choose path, Saigon, I think is the clinic name. I think they're national. They won't accept my diagnosis. They'll have to re-diagnose me. What a waste of NHS money. I'm sure they're just doing it to make money. Like, why do you need to re-diagnose me? I've got a diagnosis. I'm on the medication. It makes a difference to me. I do wonder whether, and maybe it's the skeptic in me, that because of my MS, that's why my GP surgery wouldn't approve my shared care. But it helps my MS. So surely that's the most important thing. And I know my body better than anyone else. But like you said, you don't always get listened to.
It's why I'm sure PTSD, like the complex PTSD for me comes from childhood trauma and long-term trauma. So bullying at school, bullying at work, always kind of having to justify your existence and stuff. But I do think, I used to call it I've got complex health issues. Now I say I'm medically interesting because it's just a bit of a positive spin on it. Yes, are all these things, and rather than it being complex, it's like there's just lots of things to consider. So it just makes it me medically interesting rather than complex.
We're
So
interesting anyway. I think I'd rather have ADHD and be interesting
yeah,
than not. And I actually think that it's such a shame that people can't see the positives with neurodiversity and all the amazing entrepreneurs in the world and the inventors. And where would we be if we didn't have people whose brains work like that?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think it is a shame that we're not given more opportunity to kind of thrive without having to fight. And I'm just, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a good campaign, and I'm a huge activist, and I will go on about something until it's changed. So I'm happy to do that, but it can be exhausting sometimes, can't it?
But yeah, so it's all very interesting. And I think part of the reason it's good kind of way into talking about purple is that I wanted, because of all those extra costs that our community face, and I had 13 years with my MS where it didn't impact me. So I was oblivious to all of those extra costs. But the minute I did, I was like, hang on a minute. My son was getting student discount at the time that I had the idea. And I was like, well, he gets a student discount. He's probably got more disposable income than many people within the disabled community. Yet we don't get discounts and we spend a fortune every month. The average cost of living with a disability is over £1,000 a month. And my costs can be much higher than that. If someone's permanently in a wheelchair, the cost of a wheelchair can be £30,000, £40,000 for one that's going to be comfortable and you want to be in if you're going to be in it all the time. Or you might need a hoist, you might need an electric bed, you might have more electricity. I know my heating costs are higher because I can't be too cold and I can't be too hot because of my MS, otherwise my body kind of seizes up. And so there's so many extra costs. And I was like, this is so unfair that our community doesn't get a discount. Why has no one done it? And so I looked into it and there was nothing out there. There was someone who had tried to start a card, but it hadn't gone anywhere and they'd closed it down. Because if someone else was doing it, I wouldn't have done it. And I was like, there should be one place that you can go to if you become disabled, which for most people, you're not born with a disability. It comes later in life. There should be a place where you can go to that has all of the information that you need, all the signposting, and then the money saving. And basically, that's what I wanted to create, is Purple to be that hub of everything so that it helps the community. Because I found out so many things through talking to people or just finding it out for myself, not through any medical person. And I think it's great that I now have this platform where I can talk to people like you and talk to other women and hopefully get our voices heard more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's probably for me the most important message, is to get the female women's voices heard more. And that's not to kind of quieten the men at all. It's just because we've been, yeah,
Medically,
lost. Yeah.
medically ignored. All clinical studies, I mean, I used to work at a pharmaceutical years ago. All clinical studies are done on white men, traditionally. So a lot of medication was designed for white men. You know, like you said, you didn't know much about perimenopause. I don't know anything about it. No one talks about it. We're not taught about it. My mum had a hysterectomy, so she couldn't tell us anything. She had it. It was quite common, I think, in her generation they just whip it out and that was it. Because I know quite a few people who have said the same thing. My mum doesn't know when she started the menopause because she had a hysterectomy. Not having that knowledge hasn't helped potentially us. Whereas if I'd known that at 40, I might have gone to my doctor, well, can we test my hormones first before we do
Yeah.
anything else? And
Yeah.
see if that is an underlying cause of some of my downfall in my symptoms. So I hope that through Purple, I can help more people and share that knowledge and let others share as well.
Yeah. So, obviously I'll share the link to, Purple, but, yeah, my
Right, tell
brain
you
is
about it.
just.
I'll tell you about it. It-
Yes, please tell me a little bit about Purple. Sorry,
It's
my
fine.
brain is my brain,
It's
it's
all good.
just it's broken. It's missing today. So yeah,
Broken.
please tell me a little bit, or tell me and the listeners a little bit about Purple, please.
So anyone who has a disability or a long-term health condition that is considered a disability under the Equality Act, and for some disabilities like MS, that will be automatically classed as a disability. For others, you might need to show that it's significant and has a long-term, it will last a long time. But you can then sign up to Purple as either yourself or you can do it as a parent or a carer, as long as you have the permission of the person that you're signing up for, because you will need their paperwork because we don't accept carer paperwork. And then you become a member and then you get access to our discounts. And that's obviously growing. You know, we only launched the website in July 24, and it takes quite a lot of time as a small team to get those discounts. But we have exclusive discount with Morrison's, so you get 10% off every shop, whether that's delivered or click and collect. We've got an exclusive partnership with Holland and Barrett that went live not long ago, 10% off in store as well as online. We've got
Ooh,
Dunelm, which again is exclusive, which is in store and online. We've got loads of different discounts. There's over 350 brands on the site. And we're trying to get more and more of those exclusive ones that actually make a real difference to the community. Because I'm always trying to fight for the best, because I'm like, my community deserve the biggest discount as they have the financial challenges. Don't get me wrong, Blue Light's amazing. And a lot of the frontline staff, I get why it started. But there's a lot of people in the NHS who have good salaries and good pensions and good benefits, which the disabled community don't have. They have, you know, our community struggle to find work or stay in work or get help to work. We have all the financial challenges. We have the physical challenges, the time tax, because everything takes us longer to do. You know, we have so many challenges. We deserve to have that discount so that we can afford, particularly, you know, people in the community who have to choose between heating or eating, you know, it's not right. And there shouldn't be people fundraising for wheelchairs. So my goal with Purple is have this great hub with all the information and guides and the community Facebook group, which is, we check every person in it to make sure they are registered on our platform, and then launch a foundation one day to give grants to people who can't afford things. Because I know I'm lucky, if I need a wheelchair, I can afford it, but lots of people can't, and that's not right. I think there's 800 kids in the UK waiting for wheelchairs when we worked with these kids last year, and that's just wrong. So that's my kind of goal, is to make Purple successful so I can do the foundation one day. But we have just launched our community grant fund, which means every quarter we will choose members who apply for the grant to get help with maybe a wheelchair or access to therapy that they might need, or an adaptation or something within our very small budget, because we are a startup still. But that's kind of like stage one of getting to my foundation one day. So everything is about the community. And because I'm part of it, I get it. So the community is always first.
so is membership free? Do you have to pay for membership?
Hey, when we started, we were free, but it's just not sustainable. You know, as a business, if I want the business to survive and do the things I want it to do one day to help the community, it just needed to have a membership. So it's $6.99 for the first year. It's a one-off for the 1 year. And then it's $9.99 the second year. So you get a discount on your first year, But most of our members save more than that. £6.99 in one Morrison shop will save you £12. So, because it's capped at 100 at £12. But that's more. That's almost double the membership fee in one shop.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the way the world is and the way things work online, we have to have a membership fee. It's just the only way. We have to, cut costs, and I want the business to survive so I can do the foundation one day.
Completely affordable as well. £6.99 for a year is, yeah, when you can think about the amount of money that you're going to save.
Well, we've saved
Um,
there's over £2 million since we've launched.
I mean, wow, yeah, exactly. And you can't put a price on that either, can you? Because, I know for myself, like, I would like to work, but the fear of going from not working into work, and specifically for people that, disabled, maybe have physical disabilities. And this is not just for people that have got physical disabilities, but I think the fear of kind of moving into a job, like, how are you going to manage, what if you can't go into work one day, and is that going to be held against you, and just the financial insecurity of swapping, from being on benefits to maybe working part-time, or there's so much kind of, it's a lot of risk and it's a lot of financial insecurity. So I think it's really important, again, to kind of highlight what you're offering and Purple, just so you know that there's maybe some support that you can get out there that's more, because I saw something on the news months ago now where one of the guys, I can't remember who the person's name was, whether it's a lady, that people that are on disability benefits live a comfortable life and have lots of disposable income. Well, I'd like to just tell whoever that was that I never have any disposable income because it all gets paid on bills. And, they think we're sitting here with, like, thousands of pounds every month, and no,
The thing
we're not.
people don't understand is that PIP is personal independence payment. It's there to help you be independent. And so many people who get PIP work, and the PIP money allows them to work, whether that's a carer for them, or paying for their taxis to get to work, or their energy bills at home, so that, I don't know what, it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever, that money is meant to help you be independent, and you can still work and pay tax. And I work and I pay tax, and I get so frustrated when someone writes on my TikTok, stop being lazy and get a job. I have a job and I employ people, and PIP money is not a benefit for being out of work. I don't have any other benefits, and it's to cover the extra cost. My physiotherapy costs me £130 an hour. I have it twice a month. That takes up half of my, well, it takes up nearly all of my daily living money in one go. And there's all my other costs. Now, if someone became disabled tomorrow and they realised those extra costs and how expensive it is, and a wheelchair doesn't last forever, and there's technologies out there that can help you, and your diet, I have to keep an eye on what I eat, so I eat gluten-free and dairy-free, and that costs more money, and my heating's on for longer, so that costs more money, and I have to have air conditioning because I can't do the heat, that costs more money. There's so many things, and I'm paying tax, and those things cost more than the PIP money I get. The PIP money helps, I see, for me, because I work, I see it as a tax saving on my tax, but I'm still paying for it in the way. And and for some people who can't work now, they've worked probably for years and then become disabled. So they have contributed to society in many ways, and they would swap in a heartbeat with someone else to not have the health issues and be able to go to work. And the PIP system is really hard to get through, and so many people can't do it. So if it was that easy, go and fill in that form and try and do it, because I guarantee you won't actually be able to get through the system thinking you can fake it. It's not that easy. And you, rather than just making throwaway comments online because it's easy, go and try and do it. Because it's always, oh, my neighbour does this, or I know someone. And when people say about Motability, well, 3 million people have a blue badge in the UK. That's got nothing to do with Motability. It's only 600,000 cars in the UK with Motability. And now, thanks to the general public, people are not going to be able to get to work. They're not going to be able to afford their cars. They're going to be housebound. They're not going to be able to contribute to society because you've made it really difficult. And now the government has responded and they've made ridiculous changes to the Motability scheme that is actually going to stop people being able to get out and about. And it's
Yep.
like, wait till you become disabled because it could happen to you tomorrow.
Yep. I have a blue badge and a Motability car, and yeah, I would rather have my mobility than have to obviously have PIP and the Motability car.
Exactly.
And the blue badge. I'd rather be more physically able than I am, and it's there's still a lot of there's so many people that have a problem with like the Motability scheme, and I know the Motability scheme is being reduced significantly recently, and I do know there's a lot of people that is going to significantly impact because they're not going to be able to go to work in their car because their mileage is going to be capped at 10,000 a year, and they're not going to be able to kind of do the things that they tried to do independently. And I just think it's
Really
and there's
sad.
there's so much negative kind of publicity around the benefit system, and there's so many kind of people that have got like huge judgments around it all, and whichever government it is that's in power, they want to get us into work. Well, first of all, is there any jobs that we're actually going to be able to do? And second of all, like, where's the kind of ongoing care
Well,
if
yeah,
we do get into a job? And I know you can have
just to work, but even that's
yes, thank you.
backlog of years. So you want people to go to work, you want to encourage them to go to work, but you can't even sort out your access to work scheme that it actually
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
How you can't do one without the other.
yeah,
And people who moan, I just think they're jealous, but they're jealous because they don't understand the realities, and they are blinded by the facts, and they don't want to know about the facts. They just want to get on their bandwagon and make comment about something. They don't know what they're talking about. And they, like I said, if they become disabled tomorrow, they'll then realize and they'll eat their words because, there was someone who was moaning at someone on my TikTok about Motability, and he actually came back and apologized, and I shared his apology. And he said he actually went and spoke to someone at work and realized that he got it completely wrong and he hadn't understood. And I was like, you know what? Well done for actually A, admitting that, but B, also going to find out more about it and not just believing what you read in a headline. Because if you can't comment on something you don't actually understand, and if you're not jealous, why have you got a problem with it? Why would you not just
yeah,
move on? Like,
yeah,
do any of your friends have an issue with it? Oh, I don't have a Motability car anymore. We got rid of it. However, none of my friends had a problem with it
yeah,
because they see the struggles and the difficulties I have in life.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. And it's so unfortunate for us that there's so much kind of negative news around all of these kind of conversations. Even ADHD, like it's not like I see regularly how ADHD is overdiagnosed now.
It's not
Well,
though.
no, it's not. It's that more people it's being recognised, particularly in us women and young girls. It's been more widely recognised now and
It's like
diagnosed, but
exactly. It's like that saying. I really liked it that I saw. Um, there were more stars in the sky once they developed a telescope. They were there before, you just couldn't see them. The ADHD has always been there. It's not made up. It's there. Now we just understand it. And if you look back at history and doing psychology, you'll probably see this, where things have had different names because they didn't know what they were. And then they get a different name and they change it and we learn more and we we become educated on it and then we move on to something else. In 10 years' time, I'm sure ADHD won't be the topic of conversation. And at some point, I hope it's recognized as a positive rather than as a negative, because I think without it, we wouldn't have the entrepreneurs, as I said, and the inventors, and we'd still be living in a cave. So
yeah.
I think
And yeah, it's the main reason why I started the podcast and the project. Is just because I was just so frustrated with all of the negative kind of toxic. I know people say, "Oh, toxic positivity." I don't really have a problem with that, but toxic negativity, just words like clickbait, like words like ADHD is horrific. What? It yes, it's debilitating, but yeah, it was just through kind of continual, um, just seeing that kind of message like daily on Facebook or even, on LinkedIn and stuff, and I'm just like, but yes, it can be debilitating, and yes, it can significantly affect your life, but it's not just all the negative things, and that's why I wanted to start the podcast, because I wanted to kind of just, reframe it. And yeah, I find planning, executive functioning, like day by day, planning and executing the plans. Like I just can't. It's just I can't. But that doesn't stop me from trying. It doesn't stop me from achieving things in my life. Even within my studies, it hasn't held me back. It actually pushes me forward. I harness it as a super skill, I call it. And if anyone has a toxic positivity problem with that, then I'm sorry, but no, I don't care anymore. And I just think, when we can kind of just talk about it in a really positive way, very creative. Look at you, you've set up Purple your whole life, not just around the ADHD, but the MS as well. Like and then you're helping so many thousands of other people. And I really kind of admire that in people. And yeah. So I know that we are a little bit limited with time today. So I just wanted to kind of ask you, if you could have any advice or anything that you'd like to say to someone that is waiting to be diagnosed, newly diagnosed, women, girl, even men and boys. Is there anything that you would have liked when you were going through the process to hear?
Nothing that I think, because I've had the boys or my husband will go through it, but I think a lot of people are worried that the meds will change them. And I think that's not true. They improve what you already have. So you don't lose your personality, and you're still the same person. They just help you clear the noise from your brain so that you have more focus on the things. And everyone's different. And I think, I'm definitely more autistic, whereas my husband is definitely, he's more, he's got dyslexia as well. So we're very different in some of the things
Me
that
too.
we have in
Yeah.
terms of um, the way we present our ADHD. He's much more emotional. I'm much more factual. And so I'm probably come across as less empathetic, but I am actually very empathetic. It's just that I don't show it in the same way. And so learning those differences have been really beneficial, actually. And so understanding you've got ADHD could actually improve your relationships and your friendships, because you realize why you do something or why you might argue with your partner, and start learning to understand how better to communicate together. So there's so many benefits. And I look at my son, who has, you know, changed so much since he was diagnosed, and my stepsons, and the the difference in them. I think, there's a saying, isn't there? If you think you have ADHD, then you probably have got it, because you're unlikely to think it if you don't have it. And so I think people shouldn't be afraid. And whether you want medication or not, it's not about that. It's about understanding yourself.
Yeah. And yeah, that's what I say regularly, is just become quite inquisitive, like, read, learn about it, because the symptoms vary between each person, don't they? And I
Exactly.
think that, and then, for women, it, and some men and boys, there's kind of everything is the hyperactivities in the brain, or it's, you can't kind of catch your thoughts and stuff. So yeah, just kind of get really inquisitive with it. And, if you're diagnosed or newly diagnosed or think you might have it or whatever, then, it's just about trying to learn as much about it as you can. And, um,
No, definitely. And I think the other thing I find really interesting is that I look at my friends, and we're all neurodiverse, I'm sure, even
yeah,
or being diagnosed, because I think you naturally gel with people who are like-minded to you.
Yeah.
And so, and I look back and I had a conversation with one of my old school friends a few months ago, and we were like, well, that explains why we used to doodle so much in class and misbehave, and it all makes sense now. But you do connect with people who are like-minded, you know. I look at my friends and we're all independent women, we're all quite career focused, we're all quite, we don't do that kind of fluffy stuff. We're not like that. Yeah, so I find that really interesting. That so maybe that's why people think there's so much ADHD, because it tends to be in those groups of people tend to be maybe more connected to each other. So it feels like lots of people.
I think there's maybe, 2 or 3 of my long-term friends that I've known since school, um, that don't have ADHD, but, yeah, nearly all of my other friends do. Like, we all just yeah, we do. And, friends that I've made, since like, as an adult, and most of the friends that I've met through my university, we've all got ADHD, or we're all neurodivergent. So, yeah, we're all kind of just in the same gang. So yeah, it's really nice. I think it's great when you find your people and you find people that you can be comfortable with, and just kind of be yourself, and you don't have to mask or anything. So yeah, thank you for that, Georgina. Go on, you were going to say something then, but I'm just
So
trying to
thank you.
keep an eye on the
Yeah,
time.
I've got to, as you know, I've got another meeting.
Yes.
So
Yes, you have. So yeah, I'm just extremely aware of the time. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for the hard work you put into setting up and running Purple.
yeah, and hope
Um,
this will help raise awareness of it more people, and they can sign up and find all the information on our website, and
yep.
they can come and talk to me in the community group, because it's normally me that responds for now. And yeah, come
And
and
all I will ask for you is just to post on your website the link to this episode once I've published it. And yeah, if you know anyone else that would be interested in being a guest, or anyone that could kind of learn from us today or any of the other episodes, then that would be amazing. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and just yeah, keep doing what you're doing, because it's absolutely amazing.
thank you.
um so yeah, thank you very much. And to our listeners, if this has resonated with you, this conversation, then please do um follow, like, share, and yeah, I'll post the links to your website, Georgina, in the episode description. So yeah, thank you to the listeners for coming back. I think this is episode 25, I believe. I don't know. I've got a bit, they're all hazing into one at the moment. But yes, thanks to the listeners, and thank you very much, Georgina.